Welcome. You're watching Nanotech Today, brought to you by InTimeTV. I'm Dr. Ogan Gurel. We have a great show ahead of us. First of all, thank you for joining us. We've been seen on 6 continents, and nanotechnology is certainly a worldwide community. At Nanotech Today is broadcasting and trends and advances in nanotechnology worldwide. And our guest is Dr. Dean Ho, who's Assistant Professor of Biomedical and Mechanical Engineering at Northwestern University. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Not at all. Pleasure. I want to start out first, before we dive into some of the technical aspects, with the nature of this unique collaborative approach. You have a joint appointment as a full member in the Cancer Center and then in the Biomedical and Mechanical Engineering. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
Well, I think as emerging nanotechnology gets applied towards applications such as energy, medicine, and the life sciences in general, I think the intersection of a broad range of disciplines is really catalyzing this upstart of these emerging technologies. You have material scientists working with mathematicians. We have physicists working with biomedical engineers. I think the cure for cancer, when it's discovered someday, will really be arrived at through a collaborative effort between a broad range of these spectrums. And this is happening all over the world. And I think a lot of these exciting developments that we see in the papers that are coming out, that we see being actually used in the clinic, are really products of interdisciplinary research. Well,
you know, Nanotech Today is a show that's bringing together those different disciplines. How does it work in the you're straddling two worlds?
In practice, what we do is we develop nanomaterials for medicine. So we combine engineering approaches to try to optimize properties that exist or that we can engineer into these materials with a specific relevance for clinical translation. So when we think about it, we think, what does the clinician need and how do we do that?
So you're communicating with the clinicians
on a regular basis, which is extremely valuable because, you know, we can do a certain amount of research on our own. But when we sit down for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and in my case with my broad range of collaborators in breast cancer, neurosurgery, cardiothoracic surgery, and just general oncology, we can extract and get a lot of information from our collaborators that helps us design the properties that they need into these materials.
Well, that's interesting. That highlights a larger point, if you will, the difference between invention and innovation.
Sure.
There have been many definitions around that. We've talked about that dichotomy or distinction on this show. Invention being identifying some novel, new technique, device, compound, etc., practice. Innovation is the process of making that practical, and whether it be the commercial side, the market side, etc., which means you need to intersect with the end user.
Absolutely.
And that's essentially what it seems like you're doing, is by doing that communication with the clinicians, you're converting your inventions, and I'm simplifying, of course, to innovation.
Sure. What my group does, the technologies that we develop, it's important to have relevance. You know, when we think about the materials, again, translation is a huge component, and we think about biocompatibility, toxicity, because, you know, there's two key aspects in drug delivery. The first aspect, for example, is, can this nanomaterial deliver a drug? The second aspect,
the technical question,
right, and which is the technical side, and the second one is, you know, will this material be compatible with tissue? How will cells respond? And that is an equally, if not more important element of the work we do. That's what confers a large deal of the relevance of this work to translation.
And that entails a lot of biological understanding as well as clinical medical understanding.
Absolutely.
So the immunological aspects, for example.
Right, which is what I love about my team.
Yeah.
I have a team of about 20 postdoctoral researchers, graduate students and undergraduates, and the disciplines that they come from have wide spanning reach.
Yes.
I have a postdoc who's a material scientist and another one who's a molecular biologist, and students who are chemists and mechanical engineers. And when we think about a technology, we think about the biological response, where we think about immunology, molecular biology. We think about the innate material properties. What can we engineer into this material to elicit a specific reaction from the surrounding biology? And so to do that, we integrate all of their talents and their expertise, and that's really what makes it possible.
Sure. Well, it's an interesting lab model because some labs are set up where everybody's, in a sense, doing a different project but in the same area.
Right.
Those labs can tend to be quite competitive.
It happens.
Which is not necessarily bad or good.
Not a bad thing, sure.
And your lab has again, I'm generalizing, so I apologize, but it's fascinating. Your lab has these very different specialties, so they may not be necessarily competitive, and you must have some collaboration. But at the same rate, everybody has to have their own project. How does that work?
You know, everybody has their own project. The one interesting aspect, which I think drives everybody, maybe it slightly intimidates everybody in the beginning, but then drives them later, is these different languages that exist in the laboratory.
Right.
The different languages of disciplines. Biologists will ask different questions than engineers. They will also view the data in front of them with a different foundation.
Interesting.
And when students start to communicate across these disciplines, it's amazing to watch them learn. Amazing to watch them learn how they start to think beyond their own discipline and think about, again, the relevance towards the other discipline.
Sure.
And some of my closest collaborators, some of whom I've grown up with, backgrounds in immunology, me in biomedical engineering, and our collaborations have been absolutely wonderful because of the different questions that we ask.
What are some of the current medical needs that you see being satisfied most directly by nanotechnology?
Sure. I think when we evaluate, so my laboratory specifically works in cancer, applying nanotechnology towards cancer, as well as anti-inflammation applications, which are also relevant towards cancer, as well as cardiovascular applications. And these are really two of the top major medical pressing issues in this country, at least.
Cancer and
cardiovascular disease and cancer. And when we think about some of the current pressing medical needs, one example, if we take cancer, is how to more effectively deliver chemotherapy to the patient, where we can enhance efficacy of treatment while reducing side effects. A lot of the therapies that are used now that have clinical relevance, what they do is they're cytotoxic. They kill everything. They kill healthy cells as well as the disease cells. How can we enhance the specificity of delivering those drugs to the targeted tissue versus attacking everything else?
Sure. And nanotechnology has a role in that.
Nanotechnology has an important role in bringing about what we think are unprecedented properties towards enhancing that efficacy of treatment as well.
And this is highlighted in some of your research, so we could talk about that
Absolutely.
just in a few moments.
Sure.
But then on the cardiac side, how does that work?
With cardiovascular applications, one example I can take are the sheer number of open heart surgeries, for example, that happen in this country, which can approach about 1 million. And one example that I take from that is about 30% of patients who undergo this open heart surgery operation experience complications post-operative. One thing that happens that, and this includes inflammation, scarring, for example. The ability to treat the patient via nano after surgery in non-invasive methods, having targeted and localized drug release as well, to have a very potent response towards the tissue that has been exposed to this operation. Nanotechnology really offers an approach to optimize the treatment offered to the patient after surgery.
Interesting. And then also it came to mind the inflammation, at least this is one of the hypotheses, underlies cardiovascular disease, specifically atherosclerotic plaque formation.
Absolutely.
Quote unquote preoperatively as well. Does that have an application?
Absolutely. When you think about nanotechnology and pre-adjuvant or adjuvant treatment, or pre-op and post-op treatment, what's nice about the materials is that the properties on demand that one wants in these materials in many cases can be engineered into that material for a specific application, whether it's a pre-op or post-op. The particles, for example, that are used via nanotechnology can be loaded with a broad range of drugs that are needed as well, that can be released on demand via light, via pH. The collection of properties that can be put into these materials is truly amazing.
Sure, and so nanotechnology is a buzzword, as they often complain or say. So the nanotech aspect of your research is in the sense that you can either mechanically construct these or through external light or pH or whatever, molecule by molecule, really activate or deactivate them.
Right.
Interesting. We'll be right back. Stay right there.